Hey guys, this is MTG Degree, and my name is Luke. And today we're going to be learning about 7 ways to not miss your triggers. Everyone hates it when you miss your trigger to draw a card, or you miss your trigger for extra damage or whatever, and you end up losing the game. So we're going to endeavor not to miss them anymore. So the first thing is for drawing a card, which is the one that personally stings me the most. And that is when someone passes you priority for your turn, is to just say untap, upkeep, draw at the beginning of your turn. And if you do this, you're gonna draw that card because you literally just said draw. Sometimes during your opponent's turn, you're looking at what they're doing and you're looking at your hand and you're like really deep in the think tank, and so they pass you your turn and you just immediately start playing out the sequence that you've thought of. And, as soon as a card hits the field, you've missed your draw step. So make sure you don't do that. I know I've been guilty of it once or twice. Even did it during a tournament match and kind of felt pretty dumb. Number 2 is a reminder for when you have a trigger that happens during your upkeep or your draw. So what you do is you take a dice and you just slam that dice right on your deck. Now, when you go to draw, you'll be like, oh, there's a trigger that's supposed to be happening here because I have a dice on here. So, you'll remember about like, oh, my Abzan Beastmaster is letting me get 2 cards instead of just 1. Or, my Nyx Fleece Ram is gaining me life at the beginning of my upkeep or whatever. And this should really help out. So, the next trigger is actually to help your opponents and to make you seem like less of a jerk. So, let's say you've got your Mantis Rider or whatever, and you've been attacking a bunch of times, right? And then they crippling chill it, right? So normally you tap things to the right, unless you're just trying to bug everyone and you tap to the left. But normally you tap to the right. So what I like to do is just tap to the left, and then when you go to your untap step and you untap everything, then this will be upside down. And this will remind you, hey, there's something going on here. And then you're like, oh yeah, I'm not supposed to untap this. Because you don't ever want your opponent to feel cheated, that you took an attack that you weren't able to or whatever. So just make sure that when your stuff is crippling chilled, that it stays cold, The next tip that I have for you guys is for when something happens at the end of their turn or at the beginning of yours. And this counts as 2 tips, by the way. So what you do is you just take your hand, and instead of like holding it here and looking at it or whatever, you just put it down. And then when you pick it up, it's a reminder that you're supposed to do something when you pick it up. So you pick it up and you're like, oh yeah, that Weave Fate that I wanted to cast at the end of their turn. Or, whatever happens at the beginning of your turn. So the last thing that I'd like to talk about is that you should simply read the cards. So if you don't know exactly what a card does, don't let your opponent put it down without looking at it, because you're going to feel dumb when it has some trigger that kills you, or there's some relevant trigger that's hurting them because the card is so good that it needs some downside, and they're, missing their triggers intentionally or otherwise. So just go ahead and just read the card. There's no shame in not knowing every card ever printed. Just go ahead and read their card. The last thing I'd like you guys to do, so you don't miss your triggers, is to go ahead and just play your deck a lot. And you'll find yourself missing triggers less and less as you get more familiar with it. So a good example is actually this Nyx Fleece Ram again. So this guy is in the sideboard of a lot of control decks, and the reason why is because they're trying to like stem the tide and slowly gain life and whatever. So I've noticed a lot of control players miss this upkeep step because it's in their sideboard, not their main board, and they're not used to it triggering because they don't bring it in for every matchup. So just go ahead and play your deck a lot. If something's in your sideboard and is really complicated, maybe just run it main deck just a little bit, some casual game with friends, and that trigger will go off a lot and you'll get more used to it. Definitely a way to get better at Magic is to just play more Magic, as with everything. Alright, well those are kind of your quick tips for the day, and I hope you found them useful. This has been MTG Degree. My name is Luke, and we'll see you next time.
Oh my gosh, guys, I figured out how to do the split screen thing. Click on one of these, they're awesome.